On this Monday night, the death toll is rising rapidly from an erupting volcano in Central America and the breakthrough treatment for breast cancer that saved this woman's life. But first, a look at tonight's headlines in 60 seconds.
A volcanic eruption from Guatemala's Fuego volcano killed dozens of people on Sunday.
Rescuers are working to pull people from the rubble.
The Supreme Court has sided with a Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple.
The vote was 7-2 in favor of Jack Phillips.
The president tweeted today about pardons. I have the absolute right to pardon myself.
Pardoning himself would lead to an immediate impeachment.
Bill Clinton defending himself from recent criticism of his affair with Monica Lewinsky.
I apologize to everybody in the world.
But you didn't apologize to her.
I have not talked to her.
A man shot in the leg when a dancing FBI agent's gun went off.
The gun went off from someone's pocket.
Howard Schultz, executive chairman of Starbucks, stepping down.
Sparking a lot of speculation Schultz might be running for political office.
Also, the remarkable group of Gold Star kids helping others through their pain.
Does Corbin help make you less sad?
Yes.
This is our Western edition. Good evening. We are going to begin here tonight with a disaster unfolding in Guatemala, where the volcano of fire has erupted. It is a humanitarian crisis in the making in Central America. Rescuers are trying to pull people to safety, but more than 62 have been killed. That toll is expected to go much higher. More than 46 hurt, more than 3,200 evacuated. It is happening not far from Guatemala's capital, and Don Daler has details.
Orange, superheated gas and rocks shot into the sky and poured down the mountain, reportedly wiping out entire villages. The eruption sent ash as far as 40 miles away. In the first few hours, the ash and mud remained so hot, rescuers had a difficult time reaching victims, some of whom could be heard crying out for help. The rapidly moving mixture of gases and volcanic matter, known as pyroclastic flows, reached 1,300 degrees in some places. By the time first responders reached victims, it was often too late. Dozens were either burned to death or asphyxiated by the deadly fumes, including these children. A rapidly rising mud flow destroyed a highway bridge, and a once pristine nearby golf course was covered in dark gray ash and mud.
Volcano is behind me.
Manuel Cobar is there. Can you describe what you saw?
I can dead people. I can see very people hurt. And the situation is very sad.
Eugenia Garcia Uspatan lost all but 2 of her family members. I only managed to find 2 children last night, she says, but my 2 female daughters, my grandson, and my son are missing, together with my entire family. Sunday's 16-hour-long eruption was the most violent in more than a century.
More than 3,000 people have been evacuated from the area. Officials expect the death toll to rise as rescuers reach more villages. Jeff, pyroclastic flows from Mount Vesuvius in Italy are what buried the city of Pompeii, killing an estimated 16,000 people in the year 79.
Yeah, it appears there might be some more terrible news to come here. Don, thanks. There is big news tonight about an experimental treatment for breast cancer that has saved a woman's life. Dr. John LaPook calls it a game changer.
They say into each life, a little rain must fall.
Rain's coming, big rain.
For 52-year-old Judy Perkins, it's been a monsoon.
I had a mastectomy. I had all my lymph nodes out. 10 years later, 2013, I felt another lump on the same side, and this time it ended up being stage 4. So I entered the world of cancer patient, serious cancer patient.
Despite hormonal and chemotherapy, by 2015, the cancer had spread to her chest and liver.
I came to realize that I was going to die, and that's where my mind was. You know, I felt bad for my family, but I was grateful for the life I had had.
But then she found Dr. Steven Rosenberg at the National Institutes of Health.
So we're looking at lymphocytes.
He's a pioneer in harnessing the immune system to fight cancer. Genetic mutations in the cancer cell are the trigger causing those cells to grow out of control. Rosenberg's new approach is to find the few immune cells already in the body that can see those genetic mutations and multiply those cells into an army of cancer killers. And this is how you find the needle in the haystack, the one cell that can recognize the mutation.
Exactly right.
In a lab, Rosenberg's team grew those few immune cells into billions, then injected them into Perkins's bloodstream. There, just like the immune cells appearing white in this picture, they ganged up to attack cancer cells.
I think it had been maybe 10 days since I'd gotten the cells, and I could already feel that tumor starting to get soft, and I said, oh, it's working.
In 10 days?
Well, by then, I was like, dang, this is really working.
Inside the liver are all of these tumor deposits that are rapidly growing. But as you can see, every one of these lesions has disappeared.
2.5 years later, Perkins has no evidence of cancer. Rosenberg believes the army of immune cells are still at work.
Circulating in her body are large numbers of the cells we administered to her 2.5 years ago.
And that's fundamentally totally different from hormonal therapy, chemotherapy.
That's correct. This is just one treatment that's necessary because the cells are alive. They're part of, they are Judy Perkins.
This type of immunotherapy is still in its infancy, but Judy's success could open the door to use this kind of treatment for other solid tumors in the lung, colon, and elsewhere. And this is separate good news, Jeff, from another study that found that about 65,000 women a year with early-stage breast cancer fueled by hormones could actually do just as well with hormone blockers alone.
You said you've never seen anything like this.
Blew me away.
Remarkable. John LePuc, thanks. In a long-awaited decision, the U.S. Supreme Court sided today with a Colorado baker who refused on religious grounds to make a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. Liberal Justices Breyer and Kagan joined the conservative majority. Jan Crawford tells us the court did leave unresolved a key issue in the case.
Moments after the court's ruling, in the Masterpiece Cake Shop, baker Jack Phillips celebrated what he saw as a victory for religious freedom. In a 7-2 ruling written by Justice Anthony Kennedy, the court said Colorado officials who compared Phillips's religious objections to same-sex marriage to defenses of slavery and the Holocaust demonstrated a clear and impermissible hostility toward the sincere religious beliefs that motivated his objection to baking the wedding cake.
I really appreciate you.
Phillips told us when the court was considering the case that he would serve same-sex couples other baked goods in his shop, but he would not create a wedding cake.
Because the biblical teaching on faith, on marriage, is pretty clear, and this is promoting a ceremony that goes against those core teachings.
But the court's ruling was narrow and may well apply only to Phillips. The justices made a plea for civility in future cases, writing, "These disputes must be resolved with tolerance, without undue disrespect to sincere religious beliefs, and without subjecting gay persons to indignities." That language gave the couple, Charlie Craig and David Mullins, some comfort.
You know, I think the decision in our case is so specific that I don't think it will have a larger effect on the movement.
It is complicated and nuanced, the decision, right, Jan? Good to have you here on set tonight. You say this ruling may only apply to this particular baker. Why is that?
Well, I mean, the court flat out said in its decision that the broader issue would have to be explored in future cases. But you could also look to what the individual justices said in their separate opinions. 2 liberal justices who joined the majority opinion written by Justice Kennedy wrote separately to say they thought that state anti-discrimination laws would generally prohibit these kind of religious objections. But 2 conservative justices who also joined Justice Kennedy's majority wrote separately to say they thought these kind of religious objections were valid. All of this is to say this is not the final word. There are other cases on the horizon.
All right, our Supreme Court expert, Jan Crawford. Jan, thanks. The Supreme Court has never been asked to weigh in on whether a president may use the constitutional power to grant pardons to pardon him or herself. But the current president weighed in with his opinion today. Here's Paula Reed.
The president tweeted this morning that while he has no plans to pardon himself, he could if he wanted to. "I have the absolute right to pardon myself, but why would I do that when I have done nothing wrong?" He also continued his attacks on the legitimacy of the special counsel, tweeting that Robert Mueller's appointment is totally unconstitutional. The president's tweets echo comments from his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, Sunday.
There's nothing that limits the presidential power of pardon from a federal crime.
But Giuliani acknowledged that the question of whether the president can pardon himself is less about legality than politics.
The president of the United States pardoning himself would just be unthinkable, and it would lead to probably an immediate impeachment. You know, you get the House. Yeah. Senate be under tremendous pressure.
Republican Congressman Will Hurd on Face the Nation.
I think people would erupt. That would create outrage on both sides of the political aisle.
And today, Democratic Senator Ron Wyden, a staunch liberal, shuddered at the thought.
I certainly hope it never reaches that point. That would bring about a full-scale constitutional crisis.
But talk of pardons appears to be getting ahead of the investigation. The president has not decided whether to sit for an interview, and there's no guarantee of indictment, trial, or verdict, all of which would be challenged. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders today.
The president hasn't done anything wrong and wouldn't have any need for a pardon.
The issue of presidential pardons has never been tested in the court. In fact, the only official guidance we have on that issue is a 1974 Justice Department memo issued shortly before President Nixon resigned. And that memo says that a president cannot pardon himself under the fundamental legal principle that you can't be the judge in your own case. Jeff?
Right. Paula Reed, thank you. The hunt for a man suspected in as many as 6 murders in Arizona came to a violent end today. The man shot himself to death as a police SWAT team moved in. Maria Villarreal has late details.
Dwight Lamont Jones was tracked down to this extended stay hotel in northern Scottsdale at around 5 a.m. when he started shooting.
The SWAT team set up on the room. They were able to enter using robot and other tactics and determined that the suspect had killed himself with an apparent gunshot wound.
Police believe renowned psychiatrist Dr. Stephen Pitts was Jones's first victim last Thursday. On Friday, 2 paralegals turned up dead, Valerie Sharp and Laura Anderson. The next morning, police found hypnotherapist and life coach Marshall Levine murdered. Police believe Jones is connected to all 6 murders. Each victim had a connection to his 2009 divorce and custody battle.
Here's an open letter to my son.
Jones posted disturbing audio clips on YouTube that have since been removed. In one of them, he accuses his ex-wife's attorney of spreading lies.
Her attorney told her to plant those tapes, do all the devious she did.
Today is not a success story, but it is a story that has closure.
The sheriff said in a late press conference that it was a tip that actually led them to Dwight Jones. Connie Jones, Dwight's ex-wife, also confirms that it was actually her husband, her current husband, a retired police officer, that made the connection between the murder victims and her divorce, and he contacted Phoenix police on Saturday. Jeff, we also know that she contacted Scottsdale police on Sunday.
Maria Villarreal's in Scottsdale, Arizona for us tonight. Maria, thanks. Coming up next on the CBS Evening News, Bill Clinton says Monica Lewinsky will not be getting an apology. And later, how the children of America's fallen heroes are being helped through their grief. Former President Bill Clinton is on a book tour promoting his first novel, co-authored by James Patterson. But the tour so far has been dominated by questions straight out of the history books about the darkest moments of his presidency. Here's Ed O'Keefe.
You are giving one side.
In a combative interview with NBC, former President Bill Clinton said the Me Too movement has not changed how he views his affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky.
Did you ever apologize to him?
Yes, and nobody believes that I got out of that for free. I left the White House $16 million in debt.
Do you feel like you owe her an apology?
No, I do. I do not. I've never talked to her, but I did say publicly on more than one occasion that I was sorry.
I misled people, including even my wife. I deeply regret that.
And you don't think a private apology is owed?
I dealt with it 20 years ago plus, and the American people, 2/3 of them stayed with me, and I've tried to do a good job since then with my life and with my work.
In a separate interview with CBS Sunday Morning, Mr. Clinton was asked about comments by New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who said last fall that he should have stepped down because of the Lewinsky scandal.
Well, I just disagree with her. I mean, I think, you have to really ignore what the context was then. But, you know, she's living in a different context and she did it for different reasons.
In a tweet today, Lewinsky did not respond to Mr. Clinton directly, but said that she's grateful to people who've helped her evolve. Last fall, she told CBS This Morning that the years since the affair have been difficult.
You know, there were many times over the last 2 decades when I wasn't sure I would make it.
In that interview, Mr. Clinton said he likes the Me Too movement, calling it, quote, way overdue. But he added, I still have some questions about some of the decisions which have been made. Jeff?
All right, Ed O'Keefe, thanks. Up next here, will an FBI agent face charges for a nightclub stunt that left a bystander wounded? Denver police are interviewing witnesses and reviewing video to determine whether an FBI agent should face charges in an accidental shooting. The agent was off duty and dancing Saturday when he did a backflip. His gun fell to the floor. When he picked it up, it went off, shooting a bystander in the leg. Howard Schultz is stepping down as executive chairman of Starbucks. Schultz, who turns 65 next month, has said he's considering a range of options, including public service. He did not say whether that might include a run for president. Former President George H.W. Bush was released from a Maine hospital today after treatment for low blood pressure and fatigue. Mr. Bush turns 94 next week. Up next here tonight, Gold Star kids now helping others who've experienced similar pain. The President and First Lady invited Gold Star families to a White House reception this evening to honor them and those they lost. Tonight, the story of the children of America's fallen heroes, now helping others through their grief.
Here he is. Here's Daddy.
Brinley and Ansley Thompson come here often to visit their dad.
He'll be so proud of you.
Todd Thompson served 2 tours in Iraq. He died in 2012. Brinley? I'm Jeff. Nice to meet you.
Ansley.
We met the Thompson girls here at Arlington Cemetery's Section 60, the final resting place for the men and women who died in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Tell me what it's like visiting here, Ansley.
When you come here, you think back at the funeral and when was the last time you said goodbye.
There are more than 5,000 Gold Star kids around the country, grieving the death of a parent, sibling, or close relative. Many of them come together each year at the Good Grief Camp, run by TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors.
So when we help others, we feel better.
Here, they find empathy from legacy mentors, kids who have experienced the worst kind of pain, now remarkably helping others through theirs. Kids like Brooke Niren, who lost her father, Nathaniel Niren, in Iraq 13 years ago. The knock on the door still echoes.
I saw 2 men standing there in uniform, and I knew exactly what it meant. And the whole time, I just stood there saying, I know that he's dead, because why else would they come to my house? And I felt like I lost my whole world. He was so important to me.
Brooke entered the Good Grief Camp 6 months later.
I really don't know where I would be if I didn't have TAPS. You know, they were the ones there for me when I felt like no one else was.
She is now mentoring 8-year-old Adrienne Williams.
I never thought I'd be able to relate to an 8-year-old, but here we are sharing very similar stories about our dads.
Corbin Cabrera, now 19, first attended the Good Grief Camp when he was 15, after losing his dad, David Cabrera.
I was lucky enough to have a mentor who could get through to me in a way that helped me tremendously. How's it going?
Good.
Corbin is now Brinley's mentor.
Does Corbin help make you less sad?
Yes.
I see the look on Brinley's face when your name is mentioned. That's pretty great.
There's nothing like it.
All right, let's go put it over there.
Because not only do we get to help the kids, in a way the kids help us.
For these Gold Star kids,
there you go.
Grief and pride come in equal measure.
I put that one in.
At the end of the day, when I can help somebody else not have to go through some of the stuff that I went through before I came to TAPS, it means the world to me.
I think you're doing that with Brinley.
That's the goal. We can only hope.
We're happy because we're all with each other, and we all feel a million different emotions all at the same time. there's still that sense of happiness and hope that we all feel because we know we're together and we know that we're not alone in the world.
Gold Star Kids and Taps. That is the CBS Evening News tonight. I'm Jeff Glor. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow.